Yeah, but no sé, Fernando manda un mensaje. No, he has sent that he's running late. Okay.
That Mr. Walker?
There. All right. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Velez, are we ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I've got 12:07. Call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of March 27.
No, I haven't got the minutes because the date, it was wrong. I have the minutes, but it was another date. So the next one, we will approve it.
Will table?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know. Okay, is there a second? Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, say aye. All right. First item on the agenda. (615) East 11th Street, La Barata.
Yep.
Mr. Velez.
So these are the Secretary of Interior Standards, the National Register Historic Districts that we have. Okay, what I'm introducing here is what the Unified Development Code says regarding the HPC and the kind of votes. So the HPC is a decision-making body. That means that the final decision on COAs stops here and ends here. Cannot go to the Board of Adjustments. And so you would see that there's a table. On the table 211, there's a column for Board of Adjustment. There's a column of Historic Preservation. There's even a column for City Commission. And what can they do or what cannot they do? It's on the second page to the right. You would see that Certificate of Appropriateness is only the Historic Preservation Commission. So that means that any decision that you take is final. So you have to simply vote and in the best way you can. The other one is that when a customer introduces an application, it could be approved, it could be tabled, or it could be denied. Denied is without or with prejudice. Without prejudice is when there's not sufficient information. And denied with prejudice is simply someone that introduced a kind of project and wants to go on. And so the problem with this one is that it would be with, if someone suggests denial should be with prejudice, and the problem with this is that the item cannot return back in 6 months, or may not return in 6 months. So that's a lot of time. So you know the story of La Barata. I'm not going to repeat it here. It's an old building that appears even in the Twin Cities book. Since 1877, you can find it in the Sanborn map and the evolution that it had in the lower part of each of the half blocks. This was the prior condition of the building. I'm showing here the only original remaining facade that is there. This is how it looked like now. There's no stucco, and there was a starting of a brick facade on top of the existing one. Comparing with the building of La Barata, this was the minutes from October 2025 when the item was approved, simply changing the entrance doors. This is the minutes of the June of this year when the item was tabled. This is the Twin Cities engraving showing La Barata at the end. And then several photographs where you can see on the background La Barata as well, the evolution. In 1918 are still the single doors there, as you can see. Okay, this is a 2009, because the more time I have, the more possibilities that I can discover more things. So this is a photograph taken on 2009. You would see that the display of the stores were kind of two panoramic to the right and one door to the left. That's the reason why probably the city later simplified into 3 transom windows and 3 double doors. But you can see that on the second to the right, the transom is even smaller. So you can see that there are 2 where supposedly should be only 1. So then the original of this era, whenever it was built, was probably 6 little transom windows. We have a 2010 when Los Reyes opened. We have a photograph of 2012 when still the rhythm were 2 panoramic windows on the door. 2013. The man just starting to remove certain areas. 2016. The remodel that Los Reyes Cafe did in 2023. And then the drawings that have been submitted through Acela, one in February. Another one here. The COA given on February of 2025. Afterwards, more submittal of drawings. And then the last one was 2 days ago, changing again the facade. As you can see, the original was flat, and now we have 2 kind of entrances that were resembled already on a render. Now there's a contradiction because you can see in the middle part of the building there are 3 kind of double doors, and the what is pretended is this facade with the 4 set of panoramic windows or entrances and transoms. That's why I'm giving the kind of a history from 2009 that shows the rhythm of 3 instead of 4. So later what I did was introduce other buildings that have different kind of conditions depending on the situation of them. And the previous recommendation was to table. So now the current one is simply that the staff has provided a history and a formal recommendation. So they could discuss and decide on their own what is the best approach of the following alternatives. To discuss and vote on whether the owner should rehabilitate the original facade, considering the building located in the core of Brownsville, has a high visibility and was designated as a medium preservation. This follows the Secretary of Interior standards, whether the facade should remain non-plaster or whether a new brick facade mimicking a historic one would be the best solution. So those are the three alternatives. And then the second one is if the openings on each, every individual opening should have to have 3 or 4 sets of doors and transoms.
Through the chair, if I may, this is Daniel Leal, Director of Planning. I just want to point that the stucco was not the original facade. The original facade for most of the history of this building was brick, uncovered brick. It was only on the 60s, right, or 50s that it was covered with a stucco. So I just want to clarify that slight misstatement. Okay.
Okay, the stucco was applied in the 50s,
Yes, correct.
in the 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is that
Before
that's correct,
that-
right? Yeah,
Before that, it was a brick facade,
correct.
which is existing.
Mhm.
Okay, I'd like to ask the attorney. Mr. Velez has stated that he can't make any kind of decision about this because there'll be a conflict of interest. How is this, or how would it be a conflict of interest on his part not to voice an opinion?
Well, I would have to defer to Mr. Velez to explain what the conflict arises from, because I don't know the facts behind why he would claim there's a conflict of interest. Now, if he is saying as a staff member of the city, he can't give an opinion one way or another, that's probably accurate. It comes down to department policy, whether or not they allow staff members to voice an opinion, because they don't want to seem that they're going one way or another. At the very minimum, the only opinion that he can possibly give would be whether or not a project would comply with the current requirements of the Code of Ordinances. So I don't know if that answers your question or might put more on Mr. Velez to explain.
Yeah, well, the idea is to do not repeat the same recommendation given on the last meeting when the item was tabled. You know that we are a CLG and any COA has to follow the Secretary of Interior standards. And if that is so, rebuilding a facade would not be allowed. So the only way in which I can help the customer to go and move forward to whatever is the decision that you take and you recommend to the Historic Preservation Commission is by not recommending anything, and then you discuss on your own the three alternatives, with the idea that naturally this goes later to the Historic Preservation Commission. So the solution should be the kind of best one that you may consider that would convince the rest of the historic board members, you know.
Okay, so today we have the final, this 3-person panel has the final say.
No.
Then the decision goes to the whole board.
Yep.
Yes.
So the reason why I do not give any kind of recommendation is to do not, let us say, influence you, so you can decide on a free way what you may consider that is reasonable to introduce. With the idea of when you go back to the Historic Preservation Commission, there are 6 votes.
In the written piece that you have here, I thought it said that we have the final decision.
No. You have the recommendation to be given to the Historic Preservation Commission. That's
Okay,
how
let's go back to your presentation here.
to the recommendation, you mean?
To the
final.
the tables.
Yes. But yes, you are, what you're deciding today, sir,
Right,
is
right.
your recommendation to the History Preservation Commission. They decide, they have the final say.
Yeah, there's no decision. This is a, how do you
Very
call it?
small print.
How do you call it? No, but they call it in the UDC, they call it recommendation board to the Historic Preservation Commission.
But it says there, the ARC shall discuss and decide on their own what's the best.
Well,
approach.
no, meaning on your own that you will decide by yourselves. So I don't
Right.
give any kind of recommendation, so you end with whatever discussion you want to introduce later to the Historic Preservation Commission.
So then you'll take our recommendation to the next,
That's right.
Heritage
On the HPC, it would not be a staff recommendation as many other times before. It would be an architectural review recommendation. Now, what I was explaining is that there are 6 members that vote, and just in case of tie, the chair that is you can vote. So would be 2 votes here, and then in front there would be another 4. That's the reason why I'm trying to tell to everybody, including Mr. Zavala before the meeting, that the solution that you may find on the freeway should have to be sufficient, reasonable, so you can convince the other board members.
okay. Okay. Go ahead.
The plaster, the best tell. So
Yeah, I feel that, I don't know, I'm not sure that it's 50s. I would say, I would put that new facade with the openings of the, that was used as a garage and so, after the 1933 hurricane. That is when most of the buildings were also stucco. So it's 30s, 40s, maybe restucco, 50s, as Mr. Leal is saying. But it's when a lot of facades change in Brownsville due to the deterioration of the brick on the one side, and on the other, reinterpreting kind of a mission style on our buildings. Sorry?
50-year threat.
It passes the 50 years threshold. And that's the reason why the building looks like a medium preservation priority ranking within the National Historic District.
So it is a medium preservation. So on how many border brick buildings do we have left?
We have 49.
49.
Yep.
It worries me because what is more important? And the Texas Historic Commission has a 6-year policy, and a building is a product of its evolution. Understand all of it. But I think that such a unique style that we have, which is border brick building, which is the most important one which is the most important one to have exemplified still in downtown? A border brick building or a 1920s building that has been modernized?
The most important style in Brownsville?
Yeah.
No, is the original border brick.
That's why I'm kind of torn, because if you're given a choice between bringing back a border brick building, and though I understand the state's opinion, I understand all of that. But if you have a choice between bringing back a border brick building or being stuck with a mid 20th century interpretation, and the evidence is there of how that border brick building was presented. You can see it in the alley. So I'm kind of torn, because I'm always in favor of bringing back such an important, unique building for which Brownsville is the only place, except for Rio Grande City and a couple of places along the river, where you can see border brick buildings. So that's sort of my concern. That's why, well, I ask you about the 50-year threshold, because I understand that is what the state always encourage us to look at. But I think sometimes, well, there is a mitigating argument.
Let us say that okay, I'm going to put an example, an opposite example, and you will understand. When there the owner of the Sinclair station started to interior demolish the building. The faccioletta, the brick on top of the concrete walls of the Sinclair station started to be removed, and then the discovery of the Sinclair station happened to be. That was a low preservation priority ranking. What it happened is that they request and obtain, we are going to see that item soon, because the owner now wants to demolish the building, and he wanted me to sign directly the demolition. I say, no, the last news of the Historic Preservation Commission was that you were going to rehab it and get the tax credits. So then you have to do that process again. In any case, what he did was the inverse situation that we have right now. That is, from nothing that was low, there was an explanation that that building was the only downtown gas station within the National Historic District. So from low, they recognize the value, they upgrade it, and they allow them to have tax credits. Okay? So you return back that facade, or the portion of the facade that still is there. For that, you need photographs, and we have a very clear photograph of Sinclair. Thing that we don't have too much about La Barata. You can see here the photographs that we have. We have a very blurry here, that there's nothing. The canopy totally darks the facade. We have this better, but those are single openings. That's the original facade. So if you were saying, hey, let us go back to the old facade, this is the most clear one.
Yeah, but you can't go back precisely to the old facade, but I'm thinking about other projects. And this is sort of a principle in general, because the issue that we're arguing is which is the most legitimate facade.
That's right.
Okay.
For them, for the Texas Stock Commission, would be the stucco. That's the reason why when we sold this item a long time ago, I was saying, well, if you want to bring the brick facade, what I would suggest, and I was really honest, is let us work then with the sample maps and showing the sample maps. You may have a possibility to say, hey, I want to return back the brick facade, and the sample maps could support my discussion. But the item was, well, Juan, but maybe the Texas Stock Commission will not approve the mimic of the facade.
Well, we suppose they
For
will.
clarification.
Because the historic facade for them is now the stucco.
For example, we talk about the Brownsville Levy building there on the corner of, right across from churches on Washington Street. It's completely stuccoed over. It's lost in all kinds of changes that have occurred, but nevertheless, it's such an important building.
Yep.
What is its most, for Brownsville, and for people to see our history, what is most important? That they see these iconic, one-of-a-kind buildings that are still there, but have been adapted over the years? Or?
You're going to remove the stucco from that building, mainly also because it's Portland cement. So you would destroy the original facade.
Okay. See, but I think that sometimes our decisions here are going to be different from the Texas Historic Commission.
That's the reason why.
Just presenting that, because I have to lecture all the time on our historic buildings, and what is it that's so unique about Brownsville? What is it people come here to see? And it's not a 1926 or 30 false facade. So anyway, just throwing that out.
And just for clarification, so the applicant is here to speak. He would like to speak, but also the applicant is not seeking tax credits at all. So he will not go to the Texas Historic Commission.
Correct, which means it does not have to go to the Texas Historic Commission. It's our decision.
Right.
And yes, and that's what I understand, especially when it was brought up that it can be go to the state. We already know what the state will say, because we brought projects to them like this, and they always say no. You cannot return it to a previous state without having incredible proof, and even then, they don't like it. So taking it to the state is essentially saying no.
Let me, just for the record, let me list 3 facts. if everybody agrees that these are the three facts of this building, or modify what I'm stating. Number one, originally, the border brick building was built without stucco. Everybody agree with that?
Correct.
Sometime between the 1930s and the 1950s, a stucco coating was applied to the building. Everybody agree with that?
Yes, correct.
And then finally, now in 2025, the new owner, without authority from the city, removed the existing stucco. Do I agree with that? So that's where we are.
Unclear. It's unclear. The applicant was in conversations with the city and the office preservation officer. So
Okay.
I could not say, it's a little blurry, that point.
Okay, but he
The
didn't,
applicant was under the impression that he had a verbal approval from the history preservation officer.
yeah, he has stated that maybe he misunderstood when he thought he had the authority to remove the stucco. Guessing.
He was under that impression, yes.
Okay, so that's where we are. Now, I was thinking about this scenario where, let's say, Mr. Zavala decides he's through fighting the city and he decides to sell the building. And so a Mr. Sam Jones is interested in buying the building and he buys it and sits on it for a few months. And then he comes before us and says, what do I need to do? And we say, well, you need to replace the stucco that was taken down. So if he goes in and replaces the stucco, now that's a 2025 stucco. It's not a 1930 stucco.
Right.
So is that the right decision that we as a body would make? I'm concerned now that it's been removed, do we need to leave it off the building? And I think in a previous meeting that we had, Mr. Velez comment was that he needs to replace the stucco. So by doing that, he'd be covering up the border brick building that we so much treasure in this town, what few we have left. So, I'll open the floor to Mr. Zavala to speak.
And well, thank you all for making time to be here.
Is your microphone on?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, once again, now new evidence was introduced about how the transoms were now instead of 3. Before at his previous commission meeting, I was asked that I was strictly stick to 3 because that was an interpretation done in 2014. Now it's been exposed that instead of 3, it was really 6 transom windows divided into 4 different panels. That's something I agree. I would be open to change to kind of do a better, now again, a better interpretation of what used to exist throughout the years. Again, I am not interested whatsoever in tax credits. I do not want to go through the state. I cannot afford nor want to lose more time through the process, which I understand it's a long process to go through the Texas Historical Preservation Committee. I still want to be clear that it's not me trying, it is a respectful rebuild. What it used to be, the evidence we have, what's currently in the alley, is not me trying to directly mimic, but it's trying to use the same methods. The brick I am using, it's a repurposed brick that was found in the same site. So I'm not distressing materials to make it look older than they actually are. It's actually original to it. So it's not a mimic, it's actually repurposed brick. I think that this would be a very appropriate evolution of the building, bringing back what we see, parapets, based on current dimensions. Again, I am not adding anything ornamental to kind of make it look old. I'm actually trying to honor what the evidence we have. About the entrances, I am glad that we were able to see now, on the previous commission, it was a straight no or no recommendation from the Historic Preservation Officer about us adding that bulkhead wall. But if we go back to the pictures of 2009, I even think that it serves a use and there's better evidence for us to see that bulkhead or the knee wall actually did exist. And I think that that's a better to kind of respect the evolution. Now, at this point, it's not a restoration. It will never be a restoration anymore because I'm not restoring it to the previous state. That would be totally mimicking what there is. Right now, it's a compromise of the evolution of the building, doing it with appropriate materials, appropriate mortar to the age. Again, repurposing brick that it's original to the building. The transoms, I am open to honoring these 6 transoms now divided into 4 panels. I think it will look even better. I think that at this point now, nothing I do to the building it's going to be original anymore. Nothing's going to be historic. But I do think that we could do a very good and respectful reinterpretation of what it has been through its time, through the evolution the building has had itself. Again, when I removed the facade, I did not think I was doing it without a consent. But again, I mean, I think the evidence is there. We have the alley, the materials I am using, the age-appropriate mortar, the transoms and everything in terms of now being within historic preservation guidelines from locals from here from the city rather than the state. I think that this is a very good honor for the building itself. I am basing the entrances based on what's there next door, but I guess those recessed entries are very appropriate to the buildings we see here downtown. I do think that in terms of tourism, if that's also a thing, I think that what I'm trying to come up with would add to the historic charm that this building could help bring in. I would reintroduce the canopies that we have there, so it would be even better than what it was before. I believe in previous conversations, I did have to add those canopies, in which it's in my interest to protect the windows and the wood knee wall that I am proposing. But it's also a thing, an addition of, okay, well, this is okay to add, not the others, even though it hasn't been there for a while. It's kind of confusing and a lot of mixed signals that I keep getting. I really hope that this project does get approved. I think I am doing it in my best intentions. I do think that I am doing something that honors the building a lot. It's something that once existed in that same street, in that same location. It's not something that I am copying from a different building that I saw in Brownsville and I like that and I'm trying to rebuild it here. It's something, that parapet, that brick, those columns actually existed in that same block, in that same street. But I do think, and I wish you all consider that what I'm doing, it's in good faith and it is well intentioned and it is well thought.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Zavala? Okay, thank you. I haven't specifically asked Larry this question, but if this group was to be recommending that we not re-stucco and we go back to the border brick facade, would you be willing to work with Larry if he's open to it, working with you and to solve this problem? Maybe without doing your brick down at the bottom of these columns, but reverting back to the original border brick facade. Would you be willing to work with him if he was willing to work with you?
If he's willing, yes, sir, I would really appreciate that, for sure.
Thanks, Calvin.
You're welcome.
I think you made a good point, and that is you recognize you're not trying to go back to the 1893 picture on Twin Cities, which we all look at, and then the later pictures that we showed. But you are being respectful of its earlier history, of the border brick flavor.
The original construction.
Yeah, well, I mean, still this is a modification. You don't have they had a whole series of the double doors originally, and they were opened up over the years. But still, when you look at this, you do get a feeling that it's has some honest resemblance to its previous construction.
Okay, so what's the recommendation of this committee?
I respect
keeping the brick. I'm not in favor of restuccoing. As far as the openings and whatnot, I leave that up to, I respect what he's doing. But I like the exposed. I can understand why we would do exposed brick and not restucco. Stuccoing to me just doesn't give a time period at all. Whether it's done in 40s, 50s, 20s, you know, nowadays, and the border brick is original. I would keep it.
Okay, is that in the form of a motion to make to the Heritage Council?
Just one minute, you didn't close the public hearing.
No. Motion to close public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to keep the exposed border brick, and work with Larry, on finishing. Is that what we're? On using the right mortar and trying to. Using the right mortar, right
Okay.
brick. But
Should that mean that then the elevation, because this elevation has to change into then the three double doors or three transoms instead of, I think that is not needed to go to, you know, to six transoms. It's simplified, it was simplified by the previous preservation officer, so if you keep the three, it's simplified for everybody, but then this elevation should have to be changed and introduced with the corresponding recommendations of Mr. Love. So then the the elevation can be shown properly to the rest of the Historic Preservation Commission board members.
so that.
Because when board member Love says that he's going to work,
So they'd have to have a new rendering.
that would
To be
imply,
presented.
that would
Maybe
imply
at-
new
at
renders.
next
So
meeting.
then perhaps
For the
instead of
committee,
having the meeting the next week, we can have it on Friday of the other one. So then we have enough time also, and he has enough time to.
Okay, is there a second?
All right, because I didn't get that about the elevations of them not being too clear. Is that it, that the elevations were not marked clear enough on the plan? Was that answered, that the elevations are not marked clear in the plan? I did not understand what was the request.
No, because you said before that, okay, you agree we have a kind of three double doors and the set of transoms matching the doors, then this, instead of showing four, should have to show three. And also there's a kind of contradiction with the floor plan that shows on the middle area, the three double doors on the middle.
Well, based on that, really it's not, I am not intended to go back to the French doors, which were our interpretation done back in 2014. So I don't think those even have any historic relevance or anything needed for me to go back into that. I think there you might see four in the middle fenestration, but actually on the second, it's just a layout for you to see, but that's where the walls go recess. It's actually two panels that I'm proposing, and then the entrance for the door. So that's kind of divided into three. In terms of whether, if it's up to me, I would rather go with more transom windows, so that way it has more charm to it, rather than a modern simplified version, which I'm not a big fan of. But that would be up to debate to the board, and I would be willing to comply with that.
Okay, but then the floor plan doesn't match what you are introducing here, no?
No, it's because that of the 6 windows was just introduced right now in this meeting. I was caught off guard with that. But it is something, I mean, the more detail I could add to the building to add that charm that I would really like to see in Main Street district in Brownsville, I would really love to go to that. I'd be willing to do the 6 if you're all comfortable with that. Instead of 4 that I proposed here, I mean, this is, again, this of it being 6, I just saw it right now.
Would you have an updated elevation for the meeting when we present this to the entire board?
Yeah, I could talk to my design guy and see if we could. I don't think it would be much of an issue of just adding 2 or 3 more.
I think it would be, since there have been so many questions all the way through, I think it'd be better if you do upgrade it so that there won't be any question
Yes, sir.
beyond that.
Perfect. Yes, sir.
Okay, Okay, so back to your.
So then the,
Okay, so is there a motion?
Motion to continue with the border break, with the, see the, go forward to committee with the elevation revised as we discussed. And Larry to work with Larry to supervise.
But no stucco, is that it?
Correct.
To leave brick exposed.
He's made a mistake. I don't think he'll do it again. Misunderstanding. But, continue with the border break. No stucco.
Border brick facade?
Yeah.
Okay.
Style,
Sir, if,
border brick style,
Style.
yeah,
Yeah.
Is there a second?
50 years from now, it's gonna be.
legitimate.
Yeah.
Second,
Okay, motion made, a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
aye.
Those opposed? Anything else,
so
Dr. Velez?
it's to rebuild the border brick facade with the elevation that he will introduce, no? That's the,
yes, sir.
As a
I'm
motion,
actually,
no?
because right now, I just had a brief conversation with Mr. Velez. My intention is to redo the facade at the parapet based on the existing evidence we have in the alley. It's not just to leave the brick exposed, it's to actually rebuild the facade and make it look proportionate to the dimensions we have in the alley.
Do you have a picture of the way it looks now? Can we go back to
It
that?
doesn't have the parapets. The dentils.
Oh, yeah.
It's flat.
Yeah. That's fine. No.
No, no. the way it
Where
is
he's
now-
taken off the stucco.
Under Mr. Velez, advice and guidance, it was that we started toothing the building so that we could actually stick and bring out the new facade, the new, I guess, cover or, the new facade of the building. So that way it comes out from the same structure and it's well appropriately attached to it.
Picture somewhere.
We saw the picture at the beginning.
Yeah, where they're working on it.
Oh,
Yeah,
there we go.
There you go. In other words, he's just gonna take that off.
You could see there from in the bottom of the columns, we had started to redo the building. So that's basically, we could just imagine of it keep going up so we could rebuild the parapet there as it goes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you are using brick found at the property, right?
Correct, sir, yes. It is brick being repurposed from the same site.
You're wanting to continue higher.
Yes, sir, rebuild the whole parapet and attach it to the building, to the same structure.
I think,
So that building you see there, it's something that I suppose it's from the original building from 1800, late 1800s, early 1900s.
oh, I don't think. I think we know, I think we understand that we're not shooting for a restoration of the 1800s building. What we're shooting for is border brick character based on what has survived. But it's not a restoration. I think we agree that we know that.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, we've already voted.
Yep.
So if there's no further comments, then is there a motion to close the meeting? Adjourn? Motion made, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made, second, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. We're adjourned.